The following is an encore presentation of U.S. Modernist Radio, underwritten by the Brent R. Harris Charitable Trust, restorer of Richard Neutra's Kaufman Desert House in Palm Springs and 6 other houses in California, by the E. Fay Jones Conservancy, preserving the legacy of modernist architecture in Northwest Arkansas, efayjonesconservancy.org, and by Diane Bald and the Budman family, restoring significant architecture in Toronto, Los Angeles, Malibu, and Palm Springs.
Hi, I'm Natalie Morath, lead archivist for GM Design, and you're listening to U.S. Modernist Radio.
Mama don't allow no architecture around here. Mama don't allow no architecture around here. Oh, I don't care what Mama don't allow, gonna draw mine modern anyhow. Mama don't allow no architecture around here.
Welcome to U.S. Modernist Radio, where we talk and laugh with people who enjoy, own, create, dream about, preserve, love, and hate modernist architecture, the most exciting and controversial buildings in the world. I'm Tom Guild. U.S. Modernist Radio started back in 2015, one dark and stormy afternoon, and I cannot believe it, but here we are at episode number 300 with a very special architect that we have been working for years to get on the show. George has had a bag packed forever, ready to fly to Copenhagen at a moment's notice. Devoted listeners know exactly who we're talking about, because every time we say his name, you hear... Yes, today that long quest comes to a happy ending as we welcome architect
and ferryboat owner
Bjarke Ingels. Later, we'll swoon over jazz vocalist Halie Loren. And now, the guy who publicly said Bjarke Ingels is this century's Frank Lloyd Wright. Here's your host, Mr. Modernism, George Smart.
Thanks, Tom. I was interviewed by Design a few years ago about my 10 favorite modernist projects, one of which was by Bjarke Ingels. It was the Via 57 West building in New York, a structure that changed the look of the West Side. All I want for Christmas is to spend a weekend in that building. Design quoted me as saying, Bjarke Ingels is this century's Frank Lloyd Wright. What I think I said was Bjarke Ingels is the Frank Lloyd Wright of his generation. Either way, Bjarke is arguably the most accomplished living architect in the world, and by arguably, there is argument. For most non-architects, mere mortal fans of architecture like me, he is revered and has the inspiring, sometimes dazzling array of projects to back it up. For design insiders, though, it's a little bit like some musicians feel about Taylor Swift. A huge amount of jealousy and damnation by faint praise, like, he's got a good marketing team, or trolling with, his contribution to architecture is like Cardi B's contribution to rap. Such remarks are to be expected when you're at the top of your game. Just go to his website, big.dk, no comments please, to see the astonishing projects, built and unbuilt, in the U.S. and abroad, on planet and off. Yes, off planet. The firm is actively involved in construction design projects for both the Moon and Mars. His firm has designed the largest neighborhood in the country in Austin, Texas, to be 3D printed. His lectures, many on YouTube, are mesmerizing. 60 Minutes featured him as one of the few architects ever interviewed on the show. All this, and Bjarke is not even 50 years old. Frank Lloyd Wright lived to 91, so as much of a wow factor as the firm is now, we ain't seen nothing yet.
Like Zaha Hadid and Josh Ramus, Bjarke Ingels got his start with Rim Koolhaas and the firm OMA. Then, after a brief partnership, he started BIG, aka BIG, in Denmark. With 600-plus employees and offices in 4 countries, maybe more by now, BIG came on the world design radar with The Mountain, a residential project in the Øresund area of southern Copenhagen. More large commissions in Denmark followed, with similar praise, and by 2010, BIG was in New York. The firm's creativity, connections to fantastic clients, and Bjarke's brilliant choice to hire Sheila Maney-Sogard as CEO was atypical for architects who are not the greatest at management and marketing. Her leadership in the company's growth and reputation is as important as his design talent and charisma. BIG's projects include an incinerator that doubles as a ski slope in Copenhagen, the National Art Gallery of Greenland in Nuuk, the headquarters for the Shenzhen Energy Company in Shenzhen, China, Oakland Ballpark in Oakland, California, the Kimball Art Center in Utah, and many more. You can see his residential work at usmodernist.org/Ingels. That's INGELS. With a shout-out to past podcast guest Casper Astrup Schroeder, who produced Big Time, a documentary about Bjarke, filmed over 7 years, here's George's conversation with Bjarke Ingels, recorded in the BIG offices in Brooklyn, New York.
I'm willing to guess that no one has ever mispronounced your last name.
Yeah, they misspell it consistently, but the pronunciation as well.
So how do you pronounce your first name?
I normally explain it, like there's a reference to Bjork, because it's a similar BJ.
Yeah.
But the simple hack, just like you would say FBI or CIA, you pronounce every letter in the acronym. Say the acronym BRK quickly, BRK.
Bjarke. Oh, okay. That's how I've been doing it, so I feel good about that. I have watched endless videos and, of course, the movie. I've had Castrop on the show before. We talked about the movie. He was kind of my introduction to get to know you. So I want to start with your parents.
They're doing very well. They just celebrated their 53rd wedding anniversary, January 31.
And you grew up in this cool, modern, flat-roofed house. Where was that in Denmark?
Yeah, it's funny because the house is from 1959.
Okay.
And it's along the north coast of Copenhagen.
Okay.
Sloping down towards a lake in a small forest. The smallest house ever, but on a big, beautiful piece of garden.
And are you their neighbors now? I heard you bought a place in North Copenhagen.
I bought a place like 10 minutes, like closer to Copenhagen center.
Okay.
So I'm definitely going through, and where I have to build something. So I have to, tread very carefully because I want it to be a forever home.
Yeah.
So do it once and do it right.
Are you going to do that yourself, or are you going to get one of these talented folks around here to work on it for you?
Both.
Both. Well, that's very exciting. I know you lived on the boat for a while, like through the pandemic.
Yes. I converted a Norwegian ferry into a killer home. So the bar has already been set high.
Do you still have it?
I still have the ferry. It's where I stay when I'm in Copenhagen.
Okay.
It's docked next to the opera. So I see the sun rising over Copenhagen, the power plant we designed that you can ski on. And I see the sun setting over the Queen's Palace.
Have people figured out that it's your tugboat? Are they going by with their iPhones and clicking photos?
I think the rumor is out. I've heard the harbor tours pronounce my name once in a while. So
Okay.
that ship has sailed.
You've learned a little bit about dealing with fans, right? I read that you and your friend Nikolai gave you some pointers on that.
Yeah, I don't know if he gave me any pointers, but I just observed him. That, of course, he's a very recognizable and very handsome man. He played Jaime Lannister in Game of Thrones.
Which you were in, right? A little bit?
I came to see him on set in 2 of the seasons. But I just saw how elegantly he deals with the attention he gets. And it never becomes an issue because he just, takes the photo and moves on very quickly. So,
Well, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool that you got to do that.
yeah. Dan and David sort of took me around the set where they built a good part of basically downtown Dubrovnik, which is the location for King's Landing. But because in the last season they had to destroy it and it's UNESCO World Heritage, they actually had to build a rather big Dubrovnik replica in Ireland.
Okay.
So they were quite excited about the scale of construction. But then, of course, as they were touring me around, they realized that probably the work we do is... because it was a large set, but a small building. But it was fun to see.
The scale of your projects has really exceeded most people's imagination. I mean, you're off-planet now, Bjarke.
Yeah, it's true. And I think our work with ICON and NASA is really becoming quite tangible. Now we have an actual commission to send a 3D printer, essentially a laser sinterer, to the moon by 2026. And construct out of moon dust and solar-powered lasers an artifact. It won't be much bigger than a sidewalk tile, but it will be the first thing ever built on the moon.
That's just fantastic.
Yeah.
I know when I watched the movie The Martian about 7 years ago, which has this advanced colony there, you can kind of tell that they tried to make it look like some of it was made in a futuristic way with materials and methodologies that didn't exist yet. And that's really the crux of what you're trying to do, is figure out new ways not only to build on the moon and Mars, right? You're talking about Mars too. But I'm really fascinated by what you're doing in Austin with Icon. These are very modest homes.
Yeah, I love the idea that, we've had a long ongoing collaboration with Icon, and I met Jason Ballard, the CEO and founder, 4 years ago at South by Southwest. And it's kind of interesting because working with them and their engineers to be able to build something on the moon has forced us and them to push their technology further and further. Because you can say right now with the gantry crane, it's kind of a very simple, almost like an old-fashioned inkjet printer in a very large size, 30 feet long. But you need a pretty plain ground. And even though the robot is printing the house, there's still a lot of manual attendance, insertion of rebar and all kinds of things. And of course, once we go to the moon, it has to be fully automated, and it has to happen in a much less predictable terrain or ground, using entirely locally sourced resources. So locally harvested power from the sun and locally collected regolith from the ground.
Yes, there's a funny cartoon I saw one time where the astronauts are on the moon and the sign on their side of their building says "Buy local."
Exactly. That's the whole principle of lunar habitation, is in situ resource utilization. Buy local. Simply because it's very expensive. If you take a pound of cement and you fly it to the moon, you have now increased its cost 10,000-fold.
Wow.
So it's much more affordable to work with local materials, especially because buildings are heavy. But essentially, the demands of building in such a difficult and hostile environment as the moon has pushed the technology development of Icon in ways that are now giving them greater and greater advantages when they're printing on Earth. So that means that while developing the future human habitation on the moon, we're also building a Wolf Ranch, 100 homes for Lennar, one of the largest single-family home providers in America, essentially to prove that you can do what we already do, the same and better with 3D printing. And then we're also working on this project in Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico to create extremely affordable homes for those in need, all using the same technique. So in a way, I like this idea that some of the answers to our challenges on Earth can actually be found trying to solve very difficult problems on the moon.
Well, that's what NASA was telling us for years. That's how we got Tang, right? Or supposedly.
Yeah, and then I believe NASA is responsible for GPS and data encryption and so many things that facilitate our life today was side effects from NASA and DARPA challenges.
Yeah. One fun thing I noticed on the email signature on messages I get from this company, you show all the offices. You've got one in Copenhagen, and it uses the airport code, CPH, and London, LON, and Barcelona, BCN, and New York City, NYC. And then there's SZN, which is an island off of Santa Barbara. Have you bought an island, Bjarke?
I love it. It's Shenzhen.
Oh, that's what it is.
The Chinese city. Yeah. But it sounds lovely with that island off Santa Barbara.
Yes, it's beautiful. It's an abandoned runway that used to belong to the Nature Conservancy because they would maintain that island.
Interesting. We should look into it.
Yeah, really. You have changed architecture in a lot of ways. You've made it more interesting to the general public. You've really engaged the public in a way other architects haven't done before. You have explained things in your videos. I've watched a lot of the video presentations you've given both to architecture schools and to the public in general. And unlike many presenters, people come away and they get it, what you've just said. When did you realize that you had to take the jargon out of what you are presenting?
But I don't know if I've taken the jargon out of what I'm presenting, but I think ultimately the purpose of communication is to transmit an insight or a sensibility, an observation to the listener. And if you fail to achieve that transmission, then it's basically an ineffective line of communication. And also, it's interesting because the Danish word for design is formgivning,
Okay.
which means form giving.
Title of your book.
Title of a book. The reason I think it's worthy to make this little Danish lesson as a way to explain the power of design is because to design something is to give form to that which has not yet been given form. In other words, to give form to the future. Because when you're designing something, a place or a building, you are giving form to the world or part of the world that you would love to find yourself living in the future. Another way to say to give form is to formulate, to put into words something that has not yet been put into words. And I think the reason that I find it valuable to put some extra energy into formulating things is because you may know something, you may intuit something intuitively, subconsciously, preconsciously. But when you have to design something, especially buildings, it requires the confluence of a lot of different skill sets, a lot of different minds in collaboration to work towards a shared goal. Therefore, if you can formulate in language or in drawings or whatever, like that which you are longing for or that which you intuitively are curious about, you can get a lot of help from the people around you. But if you're unable to successfully make that translation into a spoken word or another kind of graphic language, it becomes very hard to align those efforts of all those people. So therefore, to put a little bit of effort into the formulation when you give form is necessary.
Well, I know, but a lot of architects formulate, but you're doing something really beyond that. I mean, you are seeing a function beyond which the client probably originally envisioned. So for instance, with VIA 57, that's not something your typical developer, even the most progressive one, just thinks up over dinner one night. The Maritime Museum, where instead of building in the boat, you built around the boat. The houses that you've done with underground car garages, really fantastic. We'll talk about it in a minute. I mean, all of these things, you're taking, I guess, a sort of client's basic requests and finding a delightful frontier beyond it, and then formulating all of that.
I think it comes down to the idea that, form giving or design is more than just living up to expectations without f***ing it up, right?
Yeah.
It's trying to sort of ask yourself, out of this primordial soup of building restrictions, budgetary constraints, and client desires and neighbor concerns and whatever else you have, can you thread a needle through it in such a way that it connects all the dots, but in a completely unexpected way that in a way presents, and for lack of a better term, that gives a gift in the form of something unexpected, something that exceeds the expectations, but that is still a completely obvious response to this set of requirements.
But it's a gift that the average person, the mere mortal, non-architect, can perceive. I mean, sometimes buildings have these things that really only those in the design profession can perceive they're there. But you've taken something like the incinerator and made it the world's most pleasant incinerator by far. You can ski on it, you can hike it, you can climb the climbing wall, you can watch the smoke rings from the pure air being puffed out the top. I mean, before that came along, nobody thought very fondly of an incinerator.
No, man, I think it's the book Form Giving. We started with a quote from William Gibson, the grandfather of cyberpunk. And it's a beautiful quote that I think is very meaningful in architecture. It's the future is already here. It's just not very evenly distributed.
Yeah.
And I think in many ways, our job as architects is to be midwives, assisting the future in giving birth to itself. The future is almost fully formed. You just have to help it be born. And that was true for the waste-to-energy power plant, Copenhagen, is that the technology proposed for the power plant was already the cleanest in the world. And the exhaust from the chimney would already be steam and air that was essentially cleaner than the air of Copenhagen.
Yeah.
So that meant that even though it might still look like a typical power plant, it was something completely different. And we tried to think hard, what can we do that would blatantly manifest the newfound freedoms of this kind of sustainable technology? In that sense, we saw the Copenhagen power plant as a manifestation of what we call hedonistic sustainability, the idea that the sustainable future is not only better for the environment, it's also much more enjoyable for the people that inhabit it.
Oh, yeah.
As a side effect of all this clean technology, of course, it's better for the environment. The CO2 emissions are lower, there are no toxins. But it also means that you can suddenly consider the facade, the tallest climbing wall in the world, and you can consider the roof at Alpine Park, where you can hike and ski. So suddenly it becomes clear to everybody that hedonistic sustainability, buildings and cities are not only better for the environment, they're also much nicer to live in.
But you've made it understandable. I mean, when I hear that the smoke is pure, it's a fact. But when I watch it going in rings above the city that I'm living in, that's delightful, right?
No, absolutely.
There's a delight that kind of permeates a number of your projects.
It's like they say in filmmaking, show it, don't tell it.
Yeah.
And I think we try to let the buildings express the potential, the newfound freedoms that are already there. We just have to identify them and enjoy them.
So in doing all this good work, Mr. Anderson, who is your Agent Smith?
Yes, I love it. I mean, there's a lot of Agent Smith in the world. I think because I really firmly believe that what we do is just to identify and benefit from things that are already like almost there. This idea the future is already here, it's just not very evenly distributed.
Well, like, for example, when you were working on Christiana, it seemed like the local government there was fine if the place was crap. But if you wanted to fix it, there were all kinds of objections.
I mean, it's true that very often doing nothing creates no hassle. But if you try to sort of improve things, suddenly it becomes incredibly difficult. With the work we did for Noma in Christiania, this is
the famous restaurant.
The famous restaurant. We were taking over this kind of abandoned old mine storage that was like covered in graffiti. You had these kind of cinder block sheds that have been erected haphazardly and destroyed again. And we tried to sort of turn the place back to life, preserving the historical storage and adding some new structures, definitely cleaning up the place, removing all the needles and whatever else you had. And of course, we ended up finding it almost impossible to do anything, even though we were actually restoring what was there. But the fact that we were doing anything was seen worse than just neglect and deterioration.
Yeah.
And I think in so many ways, the existing rules are written to prevent certain foreseeable inferior things to happen. And often the way they prevent those things they don't want to happen is by dictating something that is deemed better. But by dictating that, you prevent this kind of infinite...
A systemic improvement.
Yeah. And this kind of infinite space of possibility that has not yet been imagined. So in that sense, the job we often find ourselves doing is to find all kinds of ways to argue and demonstrate how what we are proposing is actually fully in the spirit of the code, if not entirely to the letter of the code.
Okay.
because there is some kind of quicksand of the concept of normalcy that wants to reduce everything to this kind of well-known limited outcome, right?
Right. Well, let's shift to houses. I was trying to track back about the houses that you've done. The first one I could find was one for the Olsons. Was that in 2008? The house sort of shaped like this.
Oh, that's hilarious. Yeah, I said we did work with a company called M2, like square meters, that was trying to deliver architecturally designed homes, like basically to be a Lennar of Denmark.
Right.
But with homes that had architectural intent. It turned out to be much more difficult than anyone had imagined. and the project...
that happens quite a lot, yeah.
The project tanked with the first subprime crash in late 2008.
Yeah. And the next one was the little house, Decline 845.
Yes.
Which is delightful. That was photographed all over the place. The next one is one in Mexico you did for a car collector.
The one in Mexico is not for a car collector. He does have a little garage underneath, but he's a swimmer.
Okay.
It was published on the cover of AD, but we have very little about it on the website because the client is incredibly private.
Yeah.
The site, he wanted an Olympic pool, 50 meters, 150 feet. And the only way to place such a long pool was on the diagonal of the site. As a result, the ground floor of the building is a triangle. It's the half of the site defined by the pool. And then as it rises, it becomes a rectangle. So when you swim, so in a way, the whole house is shaped by this impetus of the 50-meter pool.
Oh, that's great.
And then there's a single stair that threads through the whole house, top to bottom, connecting all the different levels. It's very elegant, in situ cast concrete with a steel stair and a 50-meter pool. With all the houses, we've tried to make the houses like a portrait of the owner.
Yeah.
And in this case, the owner and his partner were swimmers. So more than anything, they just wanted that pool.
And Mads Selby, back in Denmark, is a car collector.
Exactly.
So you've shaped this house, this fantastic circular-shaped house, to be a garage that you can put the cars around the circle underneath.
Exactly. Like he somehow wanted to make his car collection an integrated part of his living experience. So he had some idea of having a 2-story house with a kind of car elevator that could connect so the cars could come up into the house. But because the site could be situated on the top of a hill, surrounded by public access on all sides, because it's actually in the middle of what has historically been a publicly accessible meadow.
In Aarhus, right?
In Aalborg, North Aarhus,
okay.
exactly. So then the house became this kind of very simple idea of a linear building. Cars enter in one side. In the middle third, you have all the rooms. And then the last third, you have the kitchen, living, dining.
Okay.
And then it wraps around itself, climbing, like wrapped around like a scarf around the top of the hill, closed to the outside, open to the inside. But that means that as the garage is entirely open to the central garden, and then the rooms start climbing up, so they start having views of the hillside over the roof of the garage. And then finally, when you reach the kitchen and the living and the dining space, you are above and you have uninterrupted panorama over the sunset and the sunrise.
It's gorgeous.
So in many ways, it's entirely private, but entirely open. And it also means that from the living room, they can see if the kids are still have their lights on across the courtyard. And also when he goes to bed, he can turn off the lights in the garage from his bedroom, looking across the courtyard down to the cars.
And I'm sure it's now an instant landmark in Aalborg.
No, it's pretty striking presence, and also the garage has become like this incredible ballroom that you never have. So they celebrated their little boy's confirmation party.
Okay.
With all the sort of 100 guests in the garage, just moving the cars a little bit away. So I think it's almost this idea to make a house that is as raw and as a garage, and make a garage that is refined as a house.
Well, I hope that your new house turns out as well when you get that going.
No, absolutely. Like I think I'm off on a very enjoyable path. It was kind of funny. Like we're right now building our Copenhagen headquarters in Copenhagen from scratch. It's a 7-story building where every floor is open to the next floor. Mm-hmm. Every floor has access to an outdoor terrace that is connected with an outdoor stair to the terrace above and the terrace below. So you can walk from floor to floor, inside and outside, also saving one egress stair. But it also means that you don't have this core in the middle that you normally have. So everything is open towards the middle. To make these very long spans, we're using TT slabs, these kind of standard prefabricated slabs that have two beams integrated with a thin slab that can span 60 feet or more.
Like you see in airports?
You'll typically see it in garages and warehouses. It's very effective, very inexpensive, but incredible technology that spans effortlessly very far. And I was thinking about moving into the penthouse of the Copenhagen office, but in the end, I think my girlfriend had opinions that it was probably a bad idea to completely eliminate the distinction between public and private, or at least between architecture and home.
Can you just shut it off, Bjarke?
Exactly. So in the end, I thought, okay, she's maybe right. And therefore bought this other place. But I'm actually, again, because the site is 70, 80 feet wide and then sloping down towards the water. So I'm thinking about taking these TTs and having this home completely free of structure.
Yeah.
With a kind of uninterrupted enjoyment of the strait between Denmark and Sweden. It's currently gestating.
Now, when you filmed the movie Big Time with Kastrup, you were turning 40. You had a birthday party in the film in which you stared through your time portal to Copenhagen, and they all celebrated with you. You're now 48. You have a wife and a son who's, what, four or five? Yeah. How is the view from almost 50 now, Bjarke?
I'm rushing to finish my home so I can celebrate my 50th there. No, but I think having a child is an absolute game changer.
Yeah.
And it's like the hardest and loveliest thing I've ever tried.
Do you have a Lego budget, Bjarke? I mean, I imagine that they're not afraid to send you free ones.
It does help that I'm good friends with Kjell, the owner. Every time I pass by, I tend to meet with Kjell in the Lego house.
Yeah.
At least a couple of times a year, and spend a good afternoon talking about life and architecture.
And he gives you a Millennium Falcon to take home.
And I do tend to leave with a few keepsakes. So Darwin is definitely entering a serious Lego phase.
Yeah.
It is impossible to imagine the full concept of love until you've had a child.
Yeah.
I normally used to say that I thought it was a misnomer that we call the love we have for our girlfriends or like partners and the love we have for our parents and the love we have for our children, that we use the same term because it's clearly not the same.
Right.
Except when you get a child, you start understanding that the love for a parent to a child is in a strange way, the root. Because we experience it later in our life, but it's somehow the source. We experience it later in our life, so we think of it as a third thing, because the first thing we experience is our parents' love for us.
Right.
And our love for them, but it's not entirely the same.
Not the same, no.
So, and then we experience like our attraction or our love for...
Because we think our parents are idiots, of course, starting out.
Exactly. And also, like I've said so many times, like, had I known that my parents loved me the way I love Darwin, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
If I had only known. But all this aside, so that's, of course, a huge transformation or evolution. But I think in terms of architecture, like, I think last year we turned a corner or reached a milestone or a stepping stone that we haven't reached before. We, after 2 years of competition, we won the competition to design the new airport of Zurich.
Oh, great.
It will be the largest timber building on Earth. And it was like a 2-year effort. In the last 9 months, we were competing head-to-head with another team, and finally we were selected the architects. And I think that's the kind of significant public infrastructure that I would love to try to design, because it's somehow the gateway between a city and the rest of the world. And increasingly, it's becoming like shopping malls and this kind of Frankenstein of various extensions and the latest trends.
Yeah.
So that's one thing that has opened a new realm of possibility. And then the other thing was that we managed to win the competition to design the National Philharmonic of Czech Republic in Prague, down by the Vltava River in a UNESCO World Heritage City.
Yes.
Which is also like a project that has the possibility to be like a Sydney opera of significance, I would say. I mean, of course, it's a lofty goal, but it could really be an incredible significance for Prague and for this particular neighborhood in Prague, as an incredible landmark destination for the relationship between the river and the kind of roof of the city, and also like a real statement about the power of a public building in public space. And both these projects, I can already see, are becoming somewhat opening doors to a new kind of body of work.
Oh, yeah. I mean, when you get the museums and the airports, that's a big threshold to cross.
So in that sense, I'm pretty excited and hopeful for the years ahead. Like I could really feel when those two things were announced.
A surge, right?
Yeah,
kind of a
but
surge
also, but also
forward.
like a sense of arrival that I hadn't felt before.
Bjarke, this has been lovely. Thanks so much for talking with me.
An absolute pleasure.
That was George Smart with Bjarke Ingels, a phrase I wasn't sure I'd ever get to say.
The charming and soulful singer-songwriter Halie Loren won a songwriting contest at age 13, went to Nashville at 17, and had her first album at 20. Besides graduating in visual arts from the University of Oregon,
Go Ducks!
she's huge in Asia, quack, quack, especially Japan, bringing original songs and powerful standards to #1 on the Canadian and Japanese jazz charts. Her jazz debut, They Ought to Write a Song, won Best Vocal Jazz Album of the Year in the Independent Global JPF Awards. And her latest album, Live at the Cotton Club, was recorded in Tokyo. I discovered her on Pandora, and for this 300th show, I'm thrilled to welcome, talking to us from her home in Oregon, Halie Loren. Hi, Halie.
Hello.
We are so glad to have you. I have been swooning over your music. Does anybody tell you that?
Oh, well, I really appreciate that. Thank you so much, and thank you for having me. As far as swooning, that is a word I hear far too little in today's world, but I'm taking it to heart. So
Yes,
thank you.
It's a mid-century word.
It is. It is.
It really is.
It is very much a classic word. Now, you're originally from Sitka, Alaska. Was that where you won the songwriting contest?
No, I lived in Sitka until I was in my early teens. And then once I moved down to the lower 48, as we call it up there, back to Oregon, I started to really get into songwriting at that point in my life. And that's when I started to enter songwriting contests, et cetera. Right around the time I was about, 14 years old when I first started doing that. So I would have already been living in Oregon at the time.
And songwriting has been such a huge part of your life. We read that you went to Nashville to pursue that at 17. How does that actually work? Do you take your mom? Did you run away in a van with a guy named Lars? I mean, how did it happen?
Oh, my. You're inventing some very interesting alternate storylines here.
Yes.
I actually, the first one was exactly correct. My mom did come with me for the first few months because I was 17 and I had never been, on my own in any way. And so she did come and help me kind of situate myself for a little bit of that time before heading back to Oregon. And thank goodness, because honestly, I was a child. I was very naive in many ways. But one of the wonderful things that happened was that I was able to be in community with so many other songwriters so early on, and they kind of became my surrogate family while I was there. And they were all older than me, and they all sort of served as not only co-creators, but also mentors to me. And that was very important. And I'm deeply, deeply grateful for that.
So what's the career path here in Nashville when you land at 17? Do you go from club to club? Do you knock on the doors of the recording studios? What are you doing to get your name out there?
Yeah, it was kind of an interesting blend. And I can't speak for anybody else, of course. I know that in some ways my experience was somewhat unique in that I had already had some recognition through winning a lot of different songwriting contests, et cetera, at an earlier age even than moving to Nashville, that I was able to sort of get my foot in the door with a number of songwriters that then introduced me to other songwriters. And, I kind of it was a ripple effect, right? I was able to sort of build this community of co-writers and friends over time that I don't think that everybody necessarily has. It's not like a guarantee when you move to Nashville that that's what's going to happen, but I was really lucky. And I also had a manager at the time. Like I had my first manager who also had some experience in the industry in that particular, city, region, who had a lot of wisdom and some connections and, all the things that you hope that a manager would help you out with. He was definitely helpful with that. And so, I'm not under any illusion that that's the normal experience of a lot of people who just up and move to Nashville, but it was my experience and it was pretty great.
Here's one of those original songs Halie wrote, A Well-Loved Woman.
Have you ever seen a well-loved woman? Have you ever seen a soul set free? Have you ever seen somebody been to heaven and back? Well, if you haven't, take a look at me. Waves, they whisper before they crash in a primal roar. With his gaze, my mister brought me breathless to his shore. And I hear the music rushing through my fingertips, and I feel the mystic dancing in my swaying hips. Have you ever seen a well-loved woman? Have you ever seen a soul set free? Have you ever seen somebody been to heaven and back? Well, if you haven't, take a look at me. Copper wires woven through my lovesick veins. Electric fire shocks me all when it says my name. And I hear the angels singing in jubilation. I feel the radiant joy of the sweet salvation. Have you ever seen a well-loved woman? Have you ever seen a soul set free? Have you ever seen somebody in the heaven and back? Well, if you haven't, take a look at me. Take a look at me and you'll see, 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 you'll see. A well-loved woman can stop the world in its tracks. She runs, she flies, she dares, defies. She's a damn fine acrobat. She got superhero powers. One seed becomes 1,000 flowers. Ooh, have you ever seen a well-loved woman? Ever seen a soul set free? Ever seen somebody been to heaven and back? Well, if you haven't, take a look at me. Have you ever seen a well-loved woman? Have you ever seen a soul set free? Have you ever seen somebody been to heaven and back? Well, if you haven't, take a look at me. Have you ever seen a well-loved woman? Have you ever seen a soul set free? Have you ever seen somebody been to heaven and back? Well, if you haven't, take a look at me.
That doesn't sound like a Nashville song at first blush. It's great.
It's pretty great.
Yeah.
I'm picturing you in some kind of ball gown with the backup singers moving around in the background. Is that what happened? Tell me it is.
That song was written quite a long time after I moved away from Nashville. So you're right. It wasn't a Nashville song.
Yeah.
It was a much more recent song for sure. It came from a different kind of place for me. I've written a lot of different kinds of songs over my lifetime.
Now, during the pandemic, you and your husband put together these delightful little shows where you would sing and play and chat. Tell us about those.
Live streaming, man. Yeah. That became a fixture for me for the better part of 2 years. I had never performed just in the privacy of my own house in front of a camera
Yeah, I
for
bet that's weird.
A live audience. It took some getting used to, for sure. But after a while, to be honest, like, it became kind of a lifeline for me, because taking essentially 2 years off of a career that I had been doing since I was way too young to drive.
Yeah.
Like, for the first time in my life, I had taken a break from performing live. It was really filling sort of this hole in my life and this ability to connect with people through music. And so it was lovely. I definitely had to cut myself a lot more slack, because sometimes, I'd play songs by myself. Sometimes it was he and I with guitar and vocal. But I would have to kind of settle for the fact that I'm not a jazz piano player by any stretch. And so, like, there were certain songs that I really couldn't tackle very easily on my own, or, things that people would request that I I didn't know quite how I'd be able to do it. And so I actually invented this whole recurring thing that I did that was just me with my tracks without my vocals that I would play, and I'd call it karaoke. A karaoke
Oh,
show.
nice.
And so, like, I'd fill in the gaps that way too. And it just kind of became this expression of creativity and really spontaneous. And it, I think in some ways, made me come back into the live music scene feeling a little bit more relaxed about things. Like, I carried that off and I didn't die from, the exposure of that. And so I can do a lot more things than I thought that I could, and, like, end up okay on the other side of it. So it was nice. It was like, facing my fears of not always being able to bring a total perfectionist lens to everything that I did, and just be able to kind of go with whatever was happening at the time and be able to still have fun with it and still connect with people.
And your husband, he seemed pretty chill with the whole thing.
I think a lot of the time he was, because I was the one who was calling a lot of the shots. He was just like there. He's like, I'm here. I'll play songs.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, he definitely worked to learn some new things with me. He put in some time with that. But as far as, like, who we were talking to, it was my audiences. So if things went haywire, that was on me.
So is he in show business too? What's his name?
Daniel Gallo. Yeah, he and I actually have some music projects that we have done together in context with other people, as well as just as a duo. As a duo, we call ourselves Shadow Sway. Mm-hmm. And we have a couple of songs that we've released publicly with that. But we also had this band, still have it, but it hasn't been active for a while, called Halie and the Moon. And we released some recordings that way in conjunction with several other players that are part of that group. And but yeah, he's been a guitarist for many, many years and a songwriter in his own right. And yeah, it's lovely.
This song from Halie's album Heart First was written in 1952 by Guy Wood and Robert Mellon. It was a minor hit in 1953 with Frank Sinatra and became something that many saxophonists love to play. Ben Webster recorded the tune in 1956, John Coltrane in 63, and Sonny Rollins in 64. Vocal versions include Johnny Mathis, Dean Martin, Nancy Wilson, Ricky Lee Jones, Sting, and past podcast guest Diane Schur. Prepare to swoon, folks, because here's Halie with My One and Only Love.
The very thought of you makes my heart sing like an April breeze on the wings of spring. And you appear in all your splendor, my one and only love. The shadows fall and spread their mystic charms in the hush of night while you're in my arms. I feel your lips so warm and tender, my one and only love. The touch of your hand is like heaven, a heaven that I've never known. No, the blush on your cheek whenever I speak tells me that you are my own. You fill my eager heart with such desire. Every kiss you give sets my soul on fire. I give myself in sweet surrender. My one and only love. You fill my eager heart with such desire. Every kiss you give sets my soul on fire. I give myself in sweet surrender. My one and only love.
Wow, Halie, that's pretty awesome.
Oh, thank you.
Apparently, I've melted into my table here. I'm just a heap of nothingness.
I have to get a mop.
Yes.
Swooning too much is a thing, apparently.
Yeah.
I'm glad you enjoyed the song very much. And I love that you mentioned Diane Shore, too, as one of the people who performed that song. I'm so tickled that you guys have interviewed her in the past. That's amazing.
Yeah.
She's one of the greats for sure.
And she lives in Palm Springs, where we hang out during February every year. So we might even get to see her one of these days.
Wouldn't that be lovely?
Halie, people can reach you and buy your music at HalieLoren.com. That's HalieLoren.com. Halie, where are you going to be touring this summer and fall?
I will be touring all over the place. Things are still shaping up in terms of getting the official calendar out, but it will definitely be out ASAP. I'm going to be playing along the West Coast in California. I'm going to be doing some things in Canada and the East Coast, and hopefully things are shaping up to even be going international again. Besides, of course, Canada is international, but across the ocean in addition, because I will be having a brand new album coming out. So that's very exciting for me. And that usually, of course, means promotional tours. So that's what I'll be engaged in. And my full calendar will be available on my website. And I post frequently on social media, too. So if people, want to follow me on there, I'm on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, all the places. And I also have a Patreon. So, yeah, if people want to join my Patreon, that's also a great way to keep in touch with what I'm doing. But there's always my website also. So many ways.
So it's HalieLoren.com. So I make sure.
That's right.
Because I bet people misspell your name sometimes.
They often do, yes. And they mispronounce it a lot, too. I get a lot of Hallies, which I totally understand. But it is Halie Loren. and
like
yes.
Sophia.
Like Sophia. I say that a lot, and you'd be shocked how many people are like, who? Whoa!
Oh, wow.
No, that's sad.
You're not coming to my Christmas party.
Exactly. Well, I sure hope that I can see you perform live somewhere, Halie. I'll be monitoring your tour schedule, and we'll be back in touch.
Well, thank you so much for having me as a guest on your show. It really, really has been a treat.
This was an encore presentation of U.S. Modernist Radio, underwritten by the Brent R. Harris Charitable Trust, restore of Richard Neutra's Kaufman Desert House in Palm Springs and 6 other houses in California. By the E. Fay Jones Conservancy, preserving the legacy of modernist architecture in Northwest Arkansas, efayjonesconservancy.org. And by Diane Bald and the Budman family, restoring significant architecture in Toronto, Los Angeles, Malibu, and Palm Springs. Visit USModernist.org's massive archives to listen to past shows, discover documentation of 25,000 significant modernist houses, and access 5 million pages of classic 20th century architecture magazines. U.S. Modernist Radio is produced by Soundtracks Recording Studios in Raleigh, North Carolina. Our theme song is performed by George Smart and Robinson Earl, with guest research by Bobby Morris. U.S. Modernist Radio is a production of Modernist Archive Incorporated, a nonprofit educational archive for the documentation, preservation, and promotion of modernist residential design. I'm Tom Guild. Listen to any of our over 400 shows at usmodernist.org.